in some of these states, and the children are not able to go to school for upwards of some months and running. So we need to get down to fashion out ways of not just helping them. It doesn't have to be a stopgap measure. We should take it as something. If that is the only thing we even achieve, I think it will be a worthwhile achievement.
Well, having listened to you stating some of the possible challenges that may have occurred, we'd also like to say, in the light of this matter, and heard what you said, we'd like to inviting the Minister of Education to perhaps come forward and shed some light on this matter, because there's a lot of confusion out there. Well, speaking about cutoff marks, the last time the House of Reps looked at this was JAM, and it did appear it fell on deaf ears, because we had protesters storming our studios here, protesting, saying something should be done. How do we know, or do you think that this will fall on deaf ears again? Wouldn't it?
No, no, Chamberlain, I don't think that our interventions fall on deaf ears. If you recognize, a lot of people have even accused the House of Representatives as almost being labor-like, in terms of agitations to ensure that its positions are respected. In the JAM instance that you talked about, because of our intervention, I know that the Minister of State for Education, Nyesom Wike, did come out to now peg the cutoff mark for universities at 180 and for polytechnics at 160.
It was 180
that came about because of the intervention of the House. And going forward, I do not think that the current issue regarding cutoff marks into our 104 unity schools would fall on deaf ears. Certainly not.
But did it really do anything different? Because it was 180 last year, and it's 180 again this year.
No. Well, again, I didn't get all of that, but 180 last year, but I know that this year we began from about 200, and there was an outcry which led to some form of intervention from the House, and the current position, as I see it, is 180 marks, which I do not think, in ensuring that everybody is carried along, I do not think that we should sacrifice merit at any point in time. So 180 for university admission, I think, is fair enough for any child who is aspiring for university education.
We're talking about, the conditions in some of the states. You've mentioned that in some states, because of the security situation prevailing there, children have not been able to go to school for upwards of some months. Now, in these states where they have this particular challenge, do you think that it would have been excusable for us to have put down the cutoff mark so low so as to be able to admit the children, or would you have suggested another way about it?
Well, that is why I keep going back, Maope, to the state governments. When you have a particular challenge on your hands, that is where governance come in. I do not think that we should give high marks to anybody who just does the normal things, build schools, paint them, commission them. Those are matters of routine that anybody can do. When you have challenges such as we have, taking the particular instance of insecurity that I mentioned, that it takes a proactive governor to come with some remedial measures. For instance, you can introduce an exchange program. It's one big country. I know that the Kano State governor is into some kind of partnership with one or two other states where they send their students to go and get education. It's not basically because of insecurity. You get acquainted in some form of exchange program. So if you are in a state that is buffeted by security issues, the governor and the government ought to be proactive and think of ways of helping them out. For me, it would be better for scholarship to be given to some students to go to special schools, even outside their domain. That way, you are helping the child get the same education that he is being denied, either because of insecurity or because of inconducive learning atmosphere. So the bulk goes back to the states. I harp on the states because a lot of them have conscripted the local governments that should actually take charge of primary education. And so the state governments, having taken that burden upon themselves, ought to be responsive enough to think out of the box and fashion out ways where their own pupils and students would excel.
See, managers of education, of the educational system would still want to bring these issues back to the footsteps of the lawmakers in terms of budgeting, because UNESCO recommends at least about 20% or thereabout, and I stand to be corrected. But what we have in Nigeria is less than 10% budgeted for education. How would that help in improving the educational standards, especially seen by the cut of marks we are having here?
Talking about UNESCO standards and budgetary process for education, yes, we know that we are running short of what it ought to be because, again, competing needs, and we do not have all the resources at our disposal. But whatever is available, if you make the best use of whatever is available, I am sure that you would also get positive results. Have you thought about why each succeeding administration talks about the number of schools that they build? We cannot keep building infrastructure. If your predecessor have built schools across the state, what you now need to do is up the ante. The money that you ought to now put into building more schools. And some of these schools, you come to a community where you have just 50 pupils, and they already have 2 school blocks, and you are awarding contract for another school block. Who is going to use that school block? At the end of the day, the community uses it as a community hall. So instead of wasting that money building another school block so that you can chalk up your infrastructural profile, I think that money will be better deployed in remunerating the teachers, in providing instructional materials, and exposing the child to greater learning facilities. It's not a situation where you just provide maths and English textbook. That is not the only subjects they do. So I think that it's a misapplication of funds rather than a situation of paucity of funds. The funds are never enough, but if you correctly apply what is available, we will get some very positive results.
Representative Victor Ogana is the Deputy Chairman, Media and Publicity Committee of the House of Representatives. Thank you for joining us today on Sunrise Daily.